Howdy. Yes, this is gonna be a pretty long video, I guess. There'll be quite a bunch of stuff, and yeah, just stay with me, and yeah, it's gonna be a wild ride, I tell you. Anyway, as you can see here in the picture, there has been also auroral display yesterday because we had this rather brief G3 geomagnetic storm, and yeah, I was surprised that there has been this kind of auroras, and they were visible, as you can see, in the city. And I didn't really notice or didn't see really the auroras themselves, but I saw the clouds, and then I figured that there has to be a reason for why I see the clouds because it's supposed to be dark. So I started to take pictures, and yeah, they were rather interesting. So the dark spots are the clouds. It looks very strange. And it looked very strange with bare eyes as well. That's why I started to take pictures. Especially the ones here. I somehow tried to get a better picture of these clouds. They seem to have some vertical lines in them. I don't know if that's from the camera, but maybe not because they were looking rather intriguing, as does the whole sky. Yeah, what's going on there? Below the clouds. There shouldn't be any rain. I don't know. And this is just the introduction to the things I'm going to talk about because you will figure out. Yeah, that was a really intriguing looking sky yesterday. Yeah, there's something going on, I tell you. It's hard to, how to put it, say if that's something out of the normal or what's the normal. What do we consider as normal? But no one basically expected any strong geomagnetic storm because the CME that arrived was rather slow, but it had a very high or rather high density, more than 40 parts per Q or something, which is a rather high density. And then we have also to think about the constituency of the CME itself. What is it made of? We know that there is stuff coming from the sun, actual material. That's why it's called a CME, coronal mass ejection. So if we have a lot of sulfur, it might connect to Earth's electrical circuitry and all these things in a much stronger way and much quicker, and it will penetrate much deeper. Not only into the atmosphere, but also into the crust and below. This might also explain why we sometimes have those different kinds of colors within the auroras. Then now let's have a quick look at some cold plasma atmospheric phenomena. Let's call it clouds. And this was basically the first thing I spotted this morning. There is many layers. Different kinds of clouds. And there's also, you can see here how the cloud, oh, let's try again. This makes a bump up here and also makes this a bump. There's equal spacing going on, and maybe this here is just yet another layer. As you can see here, we have layers, and it goes on and on up here. And otherwise, there has been almost blue sky all over the place. And here is yet another example of a bump. It makes a wave. It's not straight. It goes like that. Do you see? Do you know what I mean? I guess so. Hopefully. So, that's also from today, this picture. And for why I think, or I find this very interesting, I have many pictures with the same phenomena. These are just the very recent I took today, earlier. Because if you go over to the plate tectonic issues, the influence of electricity in the rock forming process and the coherent connection between science, mythology, and history of Finland, part 2, paper that I wrote last year. Then we go down to, it's 2.3, I think, the chapter, plate tectonics or something else. Here you can see the microwave stones. Now we just have to scroll down a bit. I think we could start here. Unlimited development. Pentti Eskola wrote a paper called The Mineral Phases of Rocks, which was published in 1920. Eskola was the person who invented the term metamorphosed rock. He describes very accurately different stages of mineralization of different rock types. Different types of rocks react differently to the applied heat and pressure and are often found in bowl-shaped or even round structures exhibiting these differentials. Pentti Eskola writes, quote, "Another classification still more devoid of that schematic regularity characteristic of the quantitative system, but having the advantage of always following the natural lines and being capable of unlimited development, would be that entirely based on the facies principle, where each facies is successively divided according to its own rules of mineral association. This is the facies classification proposed in the present paper. Page 51, The Mineral Phases of Rocks, Eskola." If Eskola would have had one more tool in his toolbox, he probably would have figured out the mechanisms behind the neat separation of the minerals. The tool in question is electromagnetism. Unlimited development sounds intriguing to the author, me, and it's me, talking to the super anyway, to show how far the facies theory can be developed. Because it seems to be governed by truly universal laws. Telluric currents have been known to exist since at least 1862, as we will discover later. Telluric currents, like all natural energy flows, experience fluctuations of which we have eyewitness reports from ancient times. I will read this sentence again because I will prove to you something I found today, which is one of the reasons I made this video. Because we have eyewitnesses from today about the same things. Telluric currents, like all natural energy flows, experience fluctuations, of which we have eyewitness reports from ancient times, recorded in mythological stories and partially reproduced in an experiment made by the author. These fluctuations on planetary scale can be very intense and dangerous, since the source of the energy is the universe. Contrary to what mainstream theory claims that Earth's core produces the Earth's magnetic field, the author, me, thinks that Earth's magnetic field is not produced by Earth's core per se, but by the current flowing through it. He came to the conclusion that it is a naturally occurring magnetic field enveloping with many different layers, made of many different materials, different densities and states of these materials, Earth's plasmoidal core. Earth is energetically fed and connected to the Sun by a Burton current. Earth is therefore a leaking capacitor, and fluctuations in the stream of energy can trigger many kinds of disasters. The Sun, on the other hand, is connected to our next stellar neighbor, Alpha Centauri, and further connected to the plasmoid, not a black hole, at the center of our galaxy, Sagittarius A. However, the connections might be arranged. The author believes that they have to be in accordance with a step voltage pattern, Ampere's law, magneto-hydrodynamics, Markov convection, and other electrical laws. This brings us to the arrangement of elements in a Birkeland current as explained by Donald Scott. The next figure shows a depletion of elements in a Birkeland current. This graph sparked some thoughts within the author. It seems to go well with the Sapphire project spherical layering and Earth's atmosphere comparison. In the picture is visible how the outermost layer, which contains hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen, is in overlay with Earth's crust. This is made intentionally because it could be that the double layer separating the next lower layer is the moho. The reason for this is the occurrence of water on Earth in all its states. Ice, crystalline and gaseous state in the higher atmosphere, gaseous and liquid state in the lower atmosphere, liquid, ice, crystalline and gaseous state on the ground, liquid, gaseous and easy in the ground. Of course, easy water is everywhere. All waters in our bodies are in easy state. It is the thing which keeps us together and makes it possible for the energy to flow in our bodies. Deep in the crust, below the groundwater circuitry, water doesn't flow anymore, it is locked up in the rock. A change in the overall charge distribution to Earth could affect the locked up water. The spheres expand or shrink accordingly to the charge, flow, and other environmental circumstances like pressure. Therefore, we have to make the logical conclusion that the layer in Earth's crust, which contains the locked up water, expands or contracts too. In other words, if the layer shrinks, charge decreasing, the groundwater level will sink. When the layer grows in size, increase of charge, the layer will expand and therefore the groundwater levels will rise. Also, do we have to think about the amount of the layers, which of course also includes the thickness of them. If something like this would occur, it would have large implications on life on Earth. The shift between the layered thicknesses Anyway, this topic has been explained to some degree in a previous paper written by the author, Mountain Water. You can go to check out Mountain Water or the playlist. Mountain Water playlist. It contains some 365 videos, I think. So you're gonna read the paper and check the playlist, and then you probably know more about mountain water. Water is a very important thing, and it relates strongly to Finland, the land of the 1,000 lakes. And here I marked hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Here we have the Markov convection. An attempt to show how the depletion of elements in the Birkeland current and how they correlate with Earth's atmospheric layers. Note how oxygen and hydrogen are situated on the outer periphery. The closer to the core we come, the denser it gets. In the atmosphere, we have water in gaseous form, but on the surface, it's in liquid form, except it's frozen. To some depths, the water stays liquid, but even deeper, it turns into a crystalline state, an actual mineral. As proposed earlier, that Earth's core might be a plasmoid, we also need to think about the distribution of elements in spherical shaped Birkeland currents, not only the outermost, but also the others with the heavier elements. It might not come as a surprise, as helium and oxygen are on the outer range of the stream of energy, i.e., a Birkeland current. They are also on the outer side of a spherically shaped Birkeland current, i.e. a plasmoid, also called C-pinch or Bennett pinch. Yeah, there's a typo. We need to keep in mind that through the initial accumulation of elements of whatever planetary body, a certain mixture of materials is given. Therefore, a certain electromagnetic potential and polarity of the created body will dictate the further development of the body. Certain materials might accumulate more easily due to the magnetic properties of materials. We need to understand that all planets, solar systems, and galaxies have a magnetic bubble around them, a magnetosphere. It is the most outer boundary of a terrestrial object, but also the most outer boundary of every living being. In the case of the living beings, the magnetosphere is usually called aura. The principle is the same, a stream of energy going through a body which has a certain amount of closed circuits. In the case of humans and other animals, we can take the blood circuitry as an example of a closed circuit. Most modern or common science tells us that the heart is a pump, which gets an electrical shock in a certain time pattern. There are some problems with this rather simple mechanical view. One of them is the length of all our veins, arteries, and capillaries. It is estimated that an adult human body has approximately 100,000 kilometers of blood streams, which makes it obviously impossible for such a small machine as the heart to create the amount of pressure required to just pump the blood. If it would be so, the author would expect that if you would cut yourself in the finger, one would explode with a huge bang, because it would probably need hundreds if not thousands of bars in order to keep up the pressure or flow at the very end or point of return of the blood on its journey through our bodies. Obviously, we don't explode, which is a very good thing, but it raises an important question. How does it work then? Frank Chester made extensive research about the heart and he came to the conclusion that the heart is a vortex generator. It creates two oppositely spinning vortices simultaneously, which gives the blood a kind of polarity and makes it flow. In other words, our blood seems to be more pulled through our veins than pushed. Our skin might function as a double layer where the polarity of the blood switches and it gets pulled back into the heart. The fact that our blood being red relates to a high amount of iron. Iron is known for its magnetic reactivity, which also is tied to its allotrope state. Before you start to wonder how our heart and cosmic accretion of matter belong together, the author tries to point out certain similarities between the two. Counter-rotation. A Birkeland current is a counter-rotating string of energy. The heart also creates a counter-rotating vortices. Electrical current and magnetic fields. A Birkeland current is surrounded by magnetic fields. Our heart produces approximately 2.5 watts with every heartbeat and is in a similar way also surrounded by magnetic fields. Only electric currents create magnetic fields. Biomagnetohydrodynamical convection. Maybe there is no such thing known as biological magnetohydrodynamical convection, but with this, but what the author tries to explain is best compressed within these words. In the year 1845, Michael Faraday already studied the magnetic properties of blood, and he found out that arterial and venous blood differ significantly from each other, magnetically speaking. Magnetosphere. Quite like planetary bodies, our own bodies also have a magnetosphere, the aura. The blood gets pulled towards the magnetosphere when charged and pulled back when discharged. Like water vapor from the ground gets pulled up into the atmosphere, it's charged water after all, and pulled back down as rain or other precipitation. Transmutation of elements. Humans need vitamin D, which is provided by the sun. Light, especially UVB radiation, turns into vitamin D. Technically, it is not a vitamin because the main source of it is not found in the food. It is not intended to be ingested, much more to get it synthesized by our skin and activated by our kidneys. It is responsible for the absorption of calcium, phosphate, and magnesium. The three named chemicals are all alkaline. The hydrogen anion is also slightly on the alkaline side. That's why water is so important for almost all living things. The strong hydrogen bond keeps things literally together. These few examples are in their nature rather profound. The scalability is obvious. The border between biological and non-biological entities gets in a way squishy when recognizing similar processes and mechanics just on different levels of charge, density, frequencies, resonance, materials involved, sizes, and geometries. On planets and stars are constantly up and downwelling processes going on, whether within the planetary body itself, geothermal and other volcanic processes, in the atmosphere, high and low pressure systems, and between those two regions, where we are, rain, snow, energy exchange via Joule antennas and natural charge accumulations on peaks and edges, volcanic activity is usually explained by plate tectonics and the immense forces it produces. The origin of where the force comes from, which shifts the plates around our planet, is not very well explained. They just shift the way they do. Don't ask. According to consensus theory, the energy provided for the heat is by nuclear fusion in the core, combined with an unimaginable pressure which originates from gravity. This theory is not very convincing for the author because it leaves many things out of the picture, either intentionally or, in some cases, also nations could be the reason. This theory, besides many other things, doesn't explain how it is possible that Earth has an atmospheric layer called thermosphere, where we have temperatures of 2 to 3,000 degrees Celsius or more. If the heat energy only would come from below, we would expect the temperature only going down the further away we move from Earth's core. But it is not exactly so. A fundamental missing part is the aspect of interconnectedness of natural energy circuits on all scales. For example, geologists are rarely aware of the fact that geological features in the ground influence weather patterns. Meteorologists take only certain geological features such as mountains or water bodies into account in their forecast. Mountains are mainly seen only as walls which stop clouds and make them rain. This is true to a certain degree, but this is not the whole story. Water bodies, especially large ones like oceans, are known for their capability of creating powerful storms due to warm surface water. What is heating the surface waters? The sun. But we need to remember that there are many more very important geological features in the ground, also submerged ones, out in the seas. Many are not visible with bare eyes and some are interpreted wrongly. Certain accumulations of materials on the ground, often associated with an overall stronger than in general polarity and or conductivity gradient, can have rather strong influences on local weather. Something very simple. The author, me, I like very simple things. Very profound and also literally universal needs to be explained with a few words. It might even shed light on some repetitive local weather occurrences experienced by the reader, wherever you are. It is the spinning direction of magnetic vortices. A positive north magnetic body will always spin counterclockwise. A south negative magnetic body will always produce a clockwise spin. So, we have to go down still. Because I have to talk about the telluric currents and some other things that are very interesting. You can read the rest of the paper. Yeah, let's continue from here. In old times, the peoples in Finland had great respect towards the northern lights. They were told to speak with a lowered voice, and it was recommended to wear a hat when there was an auroral display, because it could be dangerous. If you sing or whistle, they could come down and kill you. The question arises of how someone could come up with a story like this. The only plausible answer to this is someone has witnessed and experienced such an event. Auroras usually occur at a height of about 80 to 100 kilometers at the boundary of Earth's upper atmosphere and the magnetosphere. In other words, we have a somewhat stable layering of our atmosphere. As the name of the magnetosphere already reveals, the layering and stability of those layers can only be the result of electromagnetism. No other force of nature exhibits such possibilities to separate or keep apart certain elements. Attraction and repellency. Molecules, charge densities, but simultaneously also keep it all together. Gravity cannot do such things because it is only attractive. It is anyway not even a force itself, only a side effect of electromagnetism. Electromagnetism is 39 magnitudes stronger than gravity. So that's 39 zeros. That's a big number. The magnetosphere encompasses the whole planet. The sun's magnetosphere, the heliosphere, encompasses our whole solar system. At the poles, very far away from the surface of the Earth, we find the polar cusps. They're like tunnels where energy goes in and out of Earth's electric circuitry via the Perkin currents. The energy exchange must be very intense because it creates a powerful magnetic field, so powerful that the needle of our compass points to it. As explained by Dave Talbot in his amazing work, The Saturn Myth, not only did our ancestors see the polar configuration, the squatterman, dragons, and the owl, they might have also seen the tunnel itself. The people who were at the poles saw it as a pillar, but for the people who were located within the structure, they saw it very differently. Anthony Perrat presents in his paper characteristics for the occurrence of a high current sea-pinch aurora as recorded in antiquity, laboratory experiments with plasma, which represents exactly this tunnel. Considering massive electric discharges between planetary bodies, we also have to think that Earth's atmosphere was so energized that parts of it went into plasma glow mode and eventually also into arc mode. We have to recognize that we are talking about fluctuations in the Bertrand current feeding Earth's internal plasmoid, taking into consideration that the fluctuations may not only have resulted in seeing the tunnel through strong ionization of atmospheric layers, but also that the amount of energy could have ranged widely, between very little and very much in a very short time. As previously mentioned, the height of the lower end of the auroral display is about 80 to 100 kilometers above the surface, which is, once thought about, not very much, after all. The lower edge of the aurora is approximately the same height as where noctilucent clouds appear. Yeah, they are just above the noctilucent clouds. Earth's atmospheric layers are something like a plasma pattern. Each layer is separated by double layers, much like we have seen in the Sapphire project. Despite the Sapphire project being more focused on the Sun, the author thinks that some fundamental principles of the different spherical layers around the anode can also be applied to Earth's atmosphere. With the next figure, the author tried to make a comparison between the Sun's Sapphire project atmospheric layers and Earth's atmospheric layers. I think I have been showing you this many times already, the same picture. The anode from the Sapphire project is surrounded by several double layers. The picture tries to bring forward analogies of it compared to Earth's atmosphere and its layers. There are obviously striking similarities visible, but also the aspect of scalability is taken into account. Okay? It's not the best quality here. Here are the auroras. Yeah, I'm still going somewhere. I'm still about to probably blow your mind. So stick with me. Earth's magnetosphere is a byproduct of the energy confined within the plasmoid at the center of Earth. In other words, when the energy input suddenly decreases, the magnetosphere will shrink in size and therefore all the other layers of Earth's atmospheric layers would get thinner too. It might be even so that the numerical amount of these layers shrink, let's say from 5 to only 3. Such a massive change in Earth's atmosphere would quite likely lead to very bad weather. A similar phenomenon can be observed in the Sapphire experiment. This would mean that the actual height of the lower part of the aurora display becomes much less or even touches the ground. Not only do we have to take into account cyclical events like the sun cycles, we need to remember that also other events could have had a similar effect on Earth's electrical circuitry. These other events are cosmic encounters with other planetary bodies, which are part of the reconfiguration of the solar system. Immanuel Velikovsky describes in his works how people all around the world were afraid of the planet Venus, and how the close encounters of Earth and Venus were electrical in nature. Explained in his book Worlds in Collision, electrical discharge events between planetary bodies were witnessed by people all over the world. All right. Now, in other words, when the energy input suddenly decreases, the magnetosphere will shrink in size, and therefore all the other layers of Earth's atmospheric layers would get thinner too. Yeah, that's my paper I wrote last year, approximately a year ago. And let me show you something that got provided once again by Ben Davidson. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, this may be the only news I watch every day. It would be nice if we could have once a talk, but that's up to him. Anyway, this is a paper he presented today. One of the reasons why I make this video. And it's published on 13th of August, on the day where we had this huge geomagnetic storm. Long-term trends in the height of the ionospheric F2 layer peak. So here we have a picture from somewhere. Here we have the F2 layer. And here we have the heights. And as you can see, it's around 200 kilometers from the ground. And here we have the other layers where we have the auroras. Since that's a rather new paper, we only have the abstract. Because I would need to be a member of some institution or whatever. But we actually don't need much more than the abstract. Long-term variation trends in the height of the ionospheric F2 layer peak in HMF2 is analyzed based on the data of Moscow and Julius Ruch stations. The near noon LT hours and 2 winter months, January and February, and 2 summer months, June and July, are considered for a period of 1996 to 2023. Well-pronounced and statistically significant negative HMF2 trends are found both in summer and winter. Overall, the F2 layer height decreased during the analyzed period by 0.5 to 1 kilometer per year. The delta method developed and published by the author earlier is applied to the same data. The results confirm a systematic decrease in the HMF2 value in the past 2 decades. It is found that the F2 layer height has decreased in recent years more rapidly than in the earlier years. So in other words, what I try to explain here in my paper seems to be very correct and true. The magnetosphere will shrink in size, or it may be grow. It might experience many different kinds of changes. The shrinking is just one of the possibilities. So, now let's go on with the same paper. We go to chapter 3. Were the ancients crazy, or is something very important missing? The thing about copper, sulfur, and the Kalevala. I have been showing this picture also many times. The base he thrust to the east and the top he lowered northwest. East and northwest. But anyway, let's go into the text itself, because I have still to show you something I found today. One of the most interesting places in the region where the author lives besides the plasma rock site is the Outokumpu copper mine. Yeah, you have to check out my Finnish copper playlist in order to get a grip of it. As explained in part 1, the name of the town Outokumpu, part 1 of the paper, so we are reading now part 2, and there's also part 3. But anyway, the name of the town Outokumpu, translated into English language, means something like strange hill. It is a very prominent peak in the landscape, not only because it is basically the only one, but it is also very steep. The name of the hill seems to be ancient, or at least very old. The name comes from tales which told that there is something strange going on top of the hill. It is very difficult to find information on the internet about the troll who once lived in the mountain according to ancient tales. Yes, the troll didn't live on the hill, he lived inside it. It's been said that it quote from an information plate at the Outokumpu copper mine. The tales told about a mountain keeper who was burning off mold from his golden underground treasures, and because of that, strange fires could be seen over the hill. After we just talked about the volcanic plasma phenomena, strange fires over hills might not sound so strange anymore. And the reasons for why we were talking about volcanoes becomes clear. Yeah, so I skipped the whole volcano thing. You probably have to check that out too. My volcano plasma playlist in order for you to catch up. But anyway, the Outokumpu copper hill got formed by an electrical discharge event. It is a vitrified blister of metal. No other natural force than electromagnetics can accumulate such large amounts of such a highly conductive material on top of the landscape. The tale doesn't speak about the formation of the hill, but more of how it interacted with its environment. We possibly find tales about the actual creation of it in the Kalevala. I probably have to show you still something about volcanic plasma phenomena. But anyway, let's go still a bit on with this. The author wrote to some degree about clouds in mountainous regions and how they should be seen as an indicator of the energy exchange between the grounds and the heavens in the mountain water paper. In the case of Outokumpu, we need to understand that this strange hill is made of copper. It is significantly elevated from its surroundings and in the proximity of an intersection of the telluric current network. The hill is something like a positive cathode. Taking into consideration that this geological cathode is a remarkable part of the SFC, surface conductivity anomaly, and it is at the cross section of the telluric current network, we need to assume that the energy going through the part of the crust can be very much. So in my paper here, if you go to check it out, you will find maps about these telluric currents and all the other things I'm talking about here. But I tried not to stretch this too far, this video, because this is gonna be a long one anyway. Yeah, this is my way of TikToking. Yes. Probably many orders of magnitude stronger than. Maybe we have to go back. It is a cross section of the telluric current network. We need to assume that the energy going through that part of the crust can be very much. Probably many orders of magnitude stronger than anyone alive today has ever experienced. Back in the days, maybe only some 2000 years ago, or even less, the telluric currents induced by strong solar eruptions created such an environment that the cathode, Outokumpu, experienced such strong current flows that it created the plasmoid above its peak. The fluctuations in the current flowing quite likely influenced the shape, color, size, and movement of the plasmoid. The hill already being significantly elevated from its surroundings made the hovering plasmoid visible from great distances. It must have been quite a sight for the people living in that area. Maybe something similar happened the last time in 1859 during the Carrington event. This is only speculation because the author hasn't found any evidence of such an event having occurred. If the current peak during the current event in Finland happened during daytime, the phenomenon was probably not visible as something shiny, but as a cloud. So, this sounds crazy to you? A plasmoid around the hill? That's the hill? And maybe a plasmoid above it or maybe around it? Like a cloud? Yes, hold on. Let me show you something. We go to volcanic plasma phenomena playlist. And let's just search for one of those. Plasma discharge event 2 years ago. Let's take this one. Let's put out the voices. Now let's have a listen to them saying, if I say anything.
Totally. Nature in its purest form, energized. I have been talking about volcanoes, and if they have this kind of static or continuous ash plume, that the ash plume could work as this kind of antenna, and it could gather energy from the layer in which it is and direct it to the volcano.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully you get the idea. That's volcanic plasma. This is the eruption. This is volcanic plasma. And that's Fuego in Guatemala. And this is going on all the time nowadays. So this video is 2 years old maybe. I made recently a video when I found the first time in daytime volcanic plasma. And it looked like a cloud. What else did you expect? So, I wanted to share with you something I have found today. And this is about the mountain here in the background. And mainly about the hotel, as you can see here in the foreground. And we are talking about the strange hill in the background here. So that's a screen recording, I think. And just let's have a look and listen to that.
This historic 5-star hotel building has been abandoned for 43 years in Nigeria because they claimed a spirit coming out of this rock behind it haunted it and did not allow for the completion of the building.
You see one imagine it now. In the night now, if you come this round place, and like why you see latrine, so you see this place. In the night, all the round of the
I cannot pass it for night, don't say the electric. Wherever they talk like that. Fire, I hear say fire.
No, say why the pass, you know if you know. Now the place why near the store. Now you see all those like we were there here now. We know what you concern them with me with us here now. Now they make up to today they never finish this building now.
So behind me is a popular Zuma rock that most people say it has a human face because of that mark you see right there. And they also say that there are spirits in those rocks. What I find interesting is not just about this Zuma rock that it has a human face or that it has a spirit, but for the fact that behind me is a 6-story building that was supposed to be a luxurious hotel that should have been built in this compound so that once you're in this luxurious hotel, you can have and enjoy the Zuma rock. But unfortunately, this hotel was abandoned, and the story behind it is that the spirits from those rocks did not allow them to complete this hotel. That each time they put a roof on this hotel, it got blown away because of the spirits from the rock. Well, I don't know how true that story is, but today what I want to do is I want to go into this building. I haven't seen anybody go into it before. I want to go into that building to really see how that building looks like. Although I'm told that this building right now is mostly being used as a hideout by kidnappers, armed robbers, and the rest. I don't know how true that is, but I'm going to attempt to go inside. I'm going to attempt to go inside to really see if that is true or not. Because sometime in the past, there are some military checkpoints just on this side of the main road right here, not too far from here, that got attacked. You know, those military checkpoints were attacked by some robbers and all of that. So, you know, some people now said those robbers actually use this building as hideouts and the rest. So I don't know how true that is, you know. But let's check if we can go in. What do you think? Are you afraid?
Now, listen very closely, and with all what I have been talking about, plasma, electricity, and all these things, they have been talking about electricity already earlier. But that's amazing.
They said they like home, eh? Okay.
Kaga hanci, ka gan shi, ka gan shi. To wani sa'in zai zama zaki.
You see them when they turn like lion.
Wai ka taba ganin da ya juya haka?
Sosai, ko ma lokaci na juyawa.
Siam.
Kuma wani sa'in,
na
ka gani, wani sa'in kuma za ka ga yayi naɗi haka.
So,
You see? Did you see what he made? The move he makes, he shows the man here.
Wani sa'in kuma za ka ga yayi naɗi haka.
He's not talking about, you know, Jesus or something. He's talking about the plasmoidal structure that spins in a certain direction. Yes, of course, the Jesus has the same, or it's representing also plasma. But what this man describes, I don't think that he's aware of the electric universe and stuff like that. But he's describing what he has seen. That's amazing.
Ka gani, wani sa'in kuma za ka ga yayi naɗi haka.
sometimes go run himself like
Yawa,
a chief.
sarki.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You just know what Papa imagine for your mind.
Yes.
As I still think they imagine for your mind.
Where the gaskiya na faruwa ko?
Allah kuwa, Allah wa da wasa
Don't
ba.
swear, don't swear.
Yeah.
Yes, not true.
Gaskiya ne wannan. Duk komai da ka gani an yana yi.
Then even this thing why he talk about it, at the hearer, they say this stone,
Okay.
something there inside. Even Oyibo people why they do this video before. Now one
Kaga
company.
wannan gini mai hana
Well,
yi.
so that one they are doing this building here. So the evil where they here, where they inside the stone, will not allow anybody
To finish the work.
finish the work. Even up to today, I tell you this is
It is true.
Kuma za ka ga yayi naɗi haka.
sometimes go run himself like
Yawa.
a
Sometimes he will run in safe like a chief. So there might be every now and then some kind of a plasmoidal movement around this mountain. Sometimes there might be just clouds, regular clouds. And in some other videos I have been watching about this Zuma rock formation, there has been also been talk about they can live there because they are very sure that they get rain every now and then, which is quite likely because of this rock or mountain. So all these kinds of stories about people telling about like their spirits living in a mountain and stuff like that, and they have been seen by ancient people, they might be true, more true than most people can ever imagine. And these things are going on still today. Not in all places, quite likely because many places are drained. There's not so much water anymore as has been in the past. And it seems that the water makes a return. Yeah, actually, now when I talk about water, I just remembered something to mention as well. Yeah, this is an interesting finding I just made yesterday about spirits in mountains and stuff. So now let me show you still something about water. Yeah, the water. We have this storm here still going on. And now some of the predictions are showing that it would hit Europe. I don't know. I'm not too surprised about this because I have been talking about the changing weather patterns, and I want to show you something I have been thinking about quite a lot in recent times. I just didn't really remember to show this basically ever. About the Gulf Stream and stuff like this like the circulations of the waters that should bring warm weather to Europe. And we have the talk about climate, how it's changing and stuff like that, because the ice is melting and, you know. But I want to show you something, just and give you a thought or something to think about, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Rain accumulation. Next 10 days. Can we zoom out further? No. But I just want to mention something. The constituency of the seawater is usually related to its salt content, because, yeah, seawater is salty. Because it's salty, it doesn't freeze over that easily. If it's less salty, it can freeze over more easily, and when it's once frozen and it gathers even some snow on top of it, we have to also take into account the albedo effect, that how the sunlight will get reflected from white surfaces and stuff like this. So, I don't know, I haven't heard anyone talking about this. Maybe there are many people who are talking about this all the time, but I haven't heard it. If there are people about this talking, please tell me. And also I want to mention that I have seen a comment about the flickering auroras that disappeared, so I couldn't really answer to this. But all these areas here, which are marked in yellow, there we have quite much rainfall, and also in other areas, obviously. There's a lot of rainfall going on. A lot of sweet water dropping into the salty water. And I'm pretty sure that all this water, which is dropping into the sea at this area here we are looking at the equator, is not from melting ice from any glacier. So the rain amount overseas is maybe a factor that has been overseen in how sea currents and sea temperatures and these kinds of things are functioning in general, because if we have a large increase of rain, in places like we are watching at here, over the sea where it's just water. Yeah, most people probably think it doesn't matter because there's just like, water and water, it doesn't matter, but seawater is salty and rain isn't. So this might be something we have to keep an eye in the future of how much the area of the sea in areas like here is saturated with fresh water falling from the sky that could maybe stay on the surface, because many waters, they don't really like to mix the waters, they like to stay by themselves. As you can see in many rivers, where rivers are joining, they are for many kilometers, they're not really mixing, because they like to stay by themselves. So now if we have huge precipitation here in this area, and let's say the surface waters are rather sweet compared to the waters below, and we get a cold outbreak, cold air coming from somewhere here or wherever from the north, and if there is like fresh water on the surface, it might freeze over because it's fresh water and not salt water, and fresh water originated from the clouds above and not from any glacier, because originally it made the journey from here, and maybe, as I have been talking about in earlier videos many times ago, it seems that this region establishes or sometimes tries to establish a connection to this region. For some reason, now we cannot see, let's see if there's any clouds that could somehow prove my claim at the moment. How much do we have? 12 hours. And also, I think that's an interesting spot here, where we don't have any clouds. For some reason, it didn't really draw. No clouds here. That's a very interesting thing. I just noticed this now. Yeah, maybe I made the mistake. I went to windy, because this could be. Here we could talk hours and hours and hours. For example, about the surface conductivity anomaly, the Kursk magnetic anomaly, which are situated somewhere here. They are exhibiting such a magnetic vortex that they are creating a high pressure system. That's why there is not so many clouds here. And also we can observe here how some of the satellite data is probably not that accurate as you would expect, because they just dissipate, There is a line where the weather gets all of a sudden much better before it reaches England. Yeah, we don't want to shake up the uniformitarianism. Yeah, we want to. Yes, but anyway, this is what I have for you. Hopefully there was something interesting. And yeah, my way of TikToking. Yeah, thanks. Bye.